If you walked into a store today, right, and bought a 14-year-old smartphone, you'd essentially just be buying a useless brick.
Oh, absolutely. A total brick.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hold a charge, it couldn't run any modern apps, and it would probably struggle to even, like, load a basic web page. In the world of technology, 14 years is just an eternity. It's multiple lifetimes.
Right. And that's the generally accepted rule of modern engineering. Innovation just moves so fast that anything over a decade old is automatically relegated to the history books. It just becomes obsolete.
But what if I told you that in 2026, people are practically sprinting to dealerships, wallets open, clamoring to pay upwards of $13,000 for a machine that hasn't seen a fundamental update since 2011?
It's wild to even think about.
It is. We aren't talking about some classic restoration project here. We are talking about a brand new vehicle rolling off the assembly line today, utilizing engineering from the Obama administration and being hailed by critics as an absolute masterpiece.
It just totally shatters the conventional logic of vehicle manufacturing. I mean, we are looking at a machine that operates as a time capsule, yet somehow manages to outshine the hyper-modern competition in ways that numbers on a spec sheet simply cannot explain.
Exactly. And so, welcome to another custom-tailored deep dive designed specifically for you. Today, our mission is to figure out exactly how this is even possible.
We have a lot to cover.
We really do. We've been poring over an absolute mountain of motorcycle journalism to get to the bottom of this. We are synthesizing raw performance analytics from Top Speed, real-world handling reviews from Cycle News, hands-on visual impressions from Ray Bowden's first ride footage on YouTube, and deep diving into the latest market reports.
Right. Getting the full picture.
Yeah, and all of these vastly different sources are obsessing over one singular legendary machine, which is the Suzuki GSX-750.
Which is such a rich subject for us to dissect, especially when you look at the current landscape of the automotive and motorcycle industries.
Oh, for sure.
Everything today is about adding more. More digital intervention, more screens, more automated safety nets. I mean, we are in an era where your refrigerator demands a Wi-Fi connection.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because in a world obsessed with algorithms smoothing out all our daily friction, the GSX-R750 really stands as a defiant rebellion.
It really does.
But to truly understand why riders are so captivated by this bike in 2026, we have to start with its skeleton, the physical engineering. You hear reviewers constantly referring to the 750cc displacement as the absolute sweet spot. But why? What is actually happening structurally?
Well, it all comes down to a masterful feat of physical packaging. When you look at the raw numbers provided by Top Speed, this motorcycle weighs just 419 pounds fully fueled.
Wow, that's light.
It is, and that includes a very generous 4.5-gallon gas tank. So inside that incredibly lightweight footprint sits an inline four-cylinder engine pumping out 148 horsepower at the crank.
Which translates to what, roughly 120 to 125 at the rear wheel?
Exactly, yeah. And it revs all the way to a screaming 14,500 RPM red line. Oh, and it has a close ratio 6-speed transmission, meaning you're looking at top speeds around 170 miles per hour and quarter-mile times under 10.5 seconds.
When I was reading those specs, I kept trying to find a good analogy for it. And I feel like in the sport bike world, you usually have to choose your fighter based on extreme weight classes.
Right, you either go big or small.
Exactly. On one end, you have the heavyweight leader bikes, the 1000cc machines. They have knockout power, pushing over 200 horsepower now, but they've gotten heavy. They often tip the scales at 440 pounds or more. They're almost too brutal for the street.
And incredibly fatiguing to ride because of that sheer mass and rotational inertia.
Right. And then on the other end, you have the lightweight fighters, the 600cc Supersports. They have amazing footwork and agility, but they lack that mid-range knockout punch. You really have to wring their necks to get them moving.
You really do.
So looking at the GSX-R750, it feels like the perfectly evolved middle child, or like the ultimate middleweight boxer. It's got the lightning-fast footwork to dodge punches, but it packs the wallop of a much larger fighter.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, your middleweight boxer analogy perfectly describes the mechanical intent of Suzuki's engineers. They essentially took a massive 750cc engine and shoehorned it into a compact 600cc sized twin-spar aluminum chassis.
Can we pause on that for a second? Because I saw that term a lot. What exactly makes a twin-spar aluminum chassis so special for this setup?
Sure. Think of a twin spar frame as two massive, rigid beams of aluminum that hug the engine on both sides. They connect the steering head at the front directly to the swing arm pivot at the back in the straightest line possible.
Okay, I can picture that.
Right, so by wrapping those huge aluminum beams around a highly compact engine, you get incredible torsional rigidity. When you lean the bike over at 100 miles per hour, the frame doesn't flex or twist like a wet noodle. It stays perfectly planted.
And the sources mention that this specific chassis has a slightly forward weight bias, like the center of gravity is pushed toward the front wheel.
Yeah.
How does that translate to the actual feeling on the road?
Well, in the engineering world of sport bikes, front-end feel is basically the holy grail.
Right.
When you approach a corner on a motorcycle and apply the brakes, the weight of the bike aggressively transfers forward. That weight presses down on the front suspension, squishing the front tire into the pavement.
Which increases the grip, right?
Exactly. It expands the tire's contact patch, the actual amount of rubber touching the road. Because the GSX-R750 already has a forward weight bias built into its geometry, the rider can load up that front wheel with immense confidence.
Ah, I see.
It creates a massive contact patch precisely when you need it most. That's what allows a rider to turn the bike on a dime and carve a corner like a scalpel. Big bike speed without big bike weight.
That makes so much sense. You are physically manipulating the shape of the tire using the bike's geometry. It's no wonder Cycle News pointed out that professional racing teams still use this chassis.
Yeah, that was a great detail.
They mentioned Chris Ulrich's M4 X-Star Suzuki team in the Moto America series. The rules actually require them to retrofit a modern ride-by-wire throttle system onto the bike, just so the race organizers can plug in their control computers.
Which is such a fascinating bit of trivia because they are essentially taking a beautiful, mechanically actuated, cable-driven throttle and bolting a computer onto it just to make it legal.
Yeah. The reviewer even joked that it's a way to keep the bike on a leash, because if the 750 was truly allowed to run free with its raw geometry, nobody else on the grid would be able to catch it.
It's just a phenomenal machine.
That is wild. But having this perfectly dialed-in physical geometry is only the first half of the story. The vessel is perfect, but what really elevates the GSX-R750 into legendary status today, in 2026, is what this bike actually lacks.
Oh, the list of omissions on this motorcycle is staggering by today's standards.
We mentioned earlier that we live in an era of digital intervention. Well, let's run through the modern tech that the GSX-R750 does not have. It has no 6-axis IMU. It has no traction control.
None at all.
It has no cornering ABS. There is no auto-blipping quick shifter. There is no engine brake control. You don't get cruise control. And you certainly don't get a Bluetooth connected color dashboard.
Nope, the closest thing you get to a computer on this motorcycle is the SDMS, which is the Suzuki Drive Mode Selector.
Yeah.
And that is fundamentally just a switch from 2008 that toggles between two basic engine maps.
Right, like an A and B mode.
Exactly. Full power or a slightly neutered power delivery for riding in the rain. That is the entirety of your digital safety net.
Here is where I have to push back a little, or at least ask the obvious question for you guys listening. I am all for mechanical purity, but we are talking about a machine that weighs 419 pounds and produces almost 150 horsepower.
It's a rocket ship.
Right. So in 2026, every other sport bike has a computer silently keeping you alive. If you take a machine this powerful onto public roads with zero traction control and zero ABS, isn't that just a recipe for a terrifying disaster? Why would anyone actively want fewer safety features?
What's fascinating here is the psychological appeal of what I call the analog sanctuary. To understand why riders actually crave this danger, we have to look at how modern safety features work. Let's take that 6-axis IMU you mentioned.
Okay.
An inertial measurement unit is a microchip that calculates the pitch, yaw, and roll of the motorcycle thousands of times a second. It knows exactly how far you are leaning.
Right, it's constantly monitoring everything.
So if you are mid-corner on a modern bike and you aggressively twist the throttle, the IMU detects that the rear wheel is about to break traction.
And it steps in to save you.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Before you even realize you've made a mistake, the computer silently cuts the fuel or retards the ignition spark. It perfectly manages the power delivery. You exit the corner feeling like a professional racer, but in reality, the machine did all the heavy lifting. The computer filtered your classy input and translated it into a safe outcome.
You know, it's like flying one of those modern high-tech camera drones. You push a joystick forward, and a dozen gyroscopes calculate the wind speed and rotor RPM to keep the drone perfectly level.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison.
It's completely effortless. You are just politely suggesting a direction to a computer.
That is a brilliant analogy. Now, contrast that with flying a stunt kite.
Okay.
No batteries, no microchips, no algorithms. To keep that kite in the air, you have to physically lean into the gusts. You have to feel the tension in the strings. If the wind drops, you have to anticipate it and pull back to keep it aloft. It requires a completely unfiltered connection to the physical elements.
And the GSX-R750 is the stunt kite.
Exactly. On the Suzuki, there is no IMU filtering your inputs. If you get greedy with the throttle mid-corner, there is no microchip to save you from a high-side crash.
And a high side is when the rear tire loses grip, slides out, and then suddenly catches traction again, right?
Yes, and it's arguably the most violent crash in motorcycling. When that rear tire abruptly regains grip, the suspension acts like a catapult and violently ejects the rider straight over the handlebars. Yeah. Without traction control, the only thing preventing a high side is your own right wrist. You have to feel the mechanical grip of the tire through the chassis. You have to listen to the RPMs. You have to make the micro adjustments yourself.
It demands complete rider presence. You can't just zone out and think about your grocery list while riding this bike.
No, absolutely not. It forces you into an absolute flow state. Cycle News actually made a fantastic reference to the old TLC song No Scrubs in their review.
I love that line.
Right. They noted that the GSX-R has absolutely no time for riders who don't know what they are doing. Take the transmission, for example. Without an auto-lipping quick shifter, you can't just stomp down on the gear lever when entering a corner.
Because you'd upset the chassis.
Exactly. You have to manually execute a synchronized dance, pulling the clutch, blipping the throttle to match the engine RPM to the rear wheel speed, and clicking the shifter all in a fraction of a second.
And if you get it wrong, the rear tire just locks up.
Yep. But because it demands so much physical and mental coordination, the emotional reward when you perfectly execute a corner is astronomical. You actually earned it.
You totally earn the speed. And part of that reward, according to every source we reviewed, is the sound. Reviewers are absolutely raving about the engine character, noting this very distinct addictive surge in power right at 6,500 RPM.
Oh, it's legendary.
And they crown this inline-4 engine as having the, quote, single best induction roar of any bike tested in the last 14 years. What makes the sound of this specific engine so impossible to replicate today?
Well, it comes down to the architecture of the engine itself and really how the industry has shifted. Today, to save money and meet strict emission standards, most manufacturers have pivoted to parallel twin engines.
Which only have 2 cylinders.
Right. Fewer moving parts, and they are cheap to produce. But the GSX-R uses an inline-4. That's 4 cylinders in a row. Because of the firing order and the primary and secondary balance of a 4-cylinder engine, it runs incredibly smoothly.
Which allows it to rev much higher without vibrating itself to pieces.
Exactly. The GSX-R750 screams all the way up to that 14,500 RPM redline. When you have 4 pistons pulling massive gulps of air through the intake manifold at 14,000 revolutions per minute, it creates a high-pitched mechanical symphony that a parallel twin simply cannot physically produce.
That makes sense.
That induction roar is quite literally the sound of pure, unadulterated atmosphere being ripped into the engine.
It sounds incredibly romantic. But we do have to ground this in reality for a moment. You know, for anyone listening who's ready to run to a dealership, buying a 2011 time capsule does come with a few genuinely outdated quirks, right? I mean, it can't all be perfect.
You are absolutely right. As magical as the chassis and the engine are, the reality is you are still dealing with 14-year-old component specifications. And the most glaring issue is the braking system.
Right.
The bike comes equipped with aging Brembo M4.32 brake calipers.
And the reviewers are pretty harsh on those.
They really were. Compared to modern state-of-the-art braking systems, the old Brembos feel very wooden. They lack that initial sharp bite when you pull the lever.
So what the fix?
Across the board, every expert recommends that upgrading the brake pads and swapping out the rubber brake lines for steel-braided ones should be the very first thing an owner does.
Okay, so the brakes need a little love out of the crate. But the detail that completely blew my mind during our research was the tire situation.
Yeah, yes. The homologation loophole. This is a truly bizarre quirk of international vehicle manufacturing.
Please break this down for us because it sounds crazy. Suzuki is shipping a brand new 2026 motorcycle with tires that went out of production years ago.
Yes. Okay, so when a manufacturer designs a new vehicle, it has to be homologated, which is a fancy legal term for being certified by government regulators for road use.
Right.
They test the emissions, the safety features, everything. If a manufacturer changes the core design of a bike, it triggers a completely new homologation process, which means the bike would suddenly have to pass 2026 emission and safety standards.
Which the GSX-R750 would fail miserably because it has no ABS and is screaming, highly polluting inline-4 engine.
Precisely. So, to keep selling it, Suzuki utilizes a loophole. They simply do not change the bike. At all.
That's hilarious.
Legally, they are still selling the exact same motorcycle that was approved in 2011. But that means they have to sell it with the exact same equipment it was certified with. Which means every brand new GSX-R750 leaves the showroom floor wearing Bridgestone Batlax BT016 tires.
Tires from 2011.
Exactly. Cycle News explicitly states that buyers should practically throw those tires in the trash on day one and mount a set of modern Bridgestone S23s. The vintage rubber actually masks how brilliant the chassis is.
Because the tire technology has just moved on so much.
Exactly. Once you put modern tires on it, the handling potential is fully unlocked.
It is so funny to think of a legal loophole forcing a company to hoard vintage tire designs. But this strict adherence to the past brings us to a critical point about the motorcycle market as a whole, right?
Yeah, it really highlights a shift.
Because this machine is so raw, demands so much skill, and simply cannot pass modern European or Australasian emission laws, the 750cc inline-4 sport bike class is basically a ghost town. The rest of the industry abandoned it. Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, they all walked away to build heavily regulated parallel twin machines. Except for Suzuki.
Right, Suzuki is defiantly doubling down. The United States is one of the very last markets on Earth where you can still legally buy one of these brand new.
Wow.
And to celebrate that defiance, Suzuki released the highly sought-after GSX-R750Z 40th Anniversary Edition for the 2026 and 2027 model years.
Ray Bowden's YouTube channel did a phenomenal walk-around of this exact model in the bright Texas sun, and visually it is just a stunner. The heritage they infused into the aesthetics is incredible.
It really is a love letter to their racing history.
The paint is this deep diamond black fire mist that just sparkles under the light, and it's heavily contrasted by these impossibly bright blue three-spoke wheels.
Which look amazing.
So good. It comes standard with a gorgeous titanium muffler and these incredibly intricate 40th anniversary badges scattered across the fuel tank and the bodywork. Even the front air intakes feature this aggressive red accent striping. It legitimately looks like a collector's item the moment it comes out of the shipping crate.
And it essentially is a collector's item, but that kind of mechanical exclusivity comes with a premium price tag, which raises a very interesting market dynamic.
Right, we have to talk about the price.
Yeah.
So Suzuki is retailing the base 750 for around $13,149 to $13,549, depending on destination charges. If you want that gorgeous 40th anniversary edition, you are looking at $13,449, up to $13,749.
Okay, keep going.
Now let's look at the competition. Yamaha recently released the R9. It is a brand new design, loaded with a 6-axis IMU, cornering ABS, cruise control, quick shifters, and a full-color dash. And Yamaha is selling it for $12,499.
Right.
That is over $1,000 cheaper than the 14-year-old Suzuki. So why on earth are riders rushing to dealerships, creating wait lists to pay a premium for older tech?
Well, if we connect this back to what seasoned riders actually value, it becomes crystal clear that GSX-R buyers are not shopping with a spreadsheet. If you judge a motorcycle strictly by the sheer volume of features per dollar, the Yamaha R9 wins easily.
Hands down.
But buyers dropping 14 grand on a GSX-R are paying for two highly specific things: mechanical endurance and finality.
Let's talk about that mechanical endurance first, because the design is 14 years old. There are no surprises, right?
Exactly. When you buy a first-generation engine from any manufacturer, you are essentially a beta tester. There will be gremlins, recalls, and unexpected failures. But the GSX-R750 engine has been subjected to over a decade of real-world torture testing.
It's proven.
Beyond proven. Our research into community forums and mechanic databases shows that these engines are notoriously bulletproof. It is incredibly common to see them run well past 40,000 miles on their original internal components without a single major issue.
And in a high-revving sport bike that spends its life at 10,000 RPM, 40,000 miles is practically immortal.
It is legendary reliability. You can take this bike to a racetrack on Sunday, absolutely wring its neck to 14,500 RPM all afternoon, and then commute to work on it Monday morning in stop-and-go traffic without a second thought. That profound peace of mind is easily worth a $1,000 premium to a serious rider.
That makes total sense. And what did you mean by finality?
I mean, the end of an era.
Hmm.
As Ray Bowden noted in his review, writers were literally rushing his local dealership in Texas to secure these 40th anniversary models.
Wow.
They are instantly selling out because the motorcycle community is acutely aware of the tightening vice grip of global emissions regulations. Between the push for electrification and the impossible standards being placed on internal combustion, the writing is on the wall.
It's over.
Raters recognize that the 2026 GSX-R750 is very likely the last truly analog inline-four sport bike that will ever be manufactured.
Wow. They aren't just buying a motorcycle. They are buying the final chapter of a specific type of human experience.
Yeah.
You're buying a piece of history that you can actually take out and ride on a Sunday morning.
It transcends transportation entirely. Owning one becomes a mechanical statement of values. It is a rejection of the digital filter.
You know, for everyone listening to this right now,
Yeah.
I think the story of the GSX-R750 frames a concept that extends way beyond the motorcycle industry. It really acts as a philosophical mirror. We live in a society where artificial intelligence and digital assists are rapidly, aggressively smoothing out all the friction of our lives.
Oh, everywhere you look.
Right. We are driving cars that aggressively beep at us if we drift an inch out of our lane or even actively steer us back. We use software that auto-completes our emails, and we live in smart homes that adjust the temperature before we even realize we are cold.
We are becoming entirely insulated from the physical world. We are being trained to be passengers in our own lives, relying on algorithms to prevent us from ever experiencing discomfort or making a mistake.
Yes. And while that insulation is incredibly convenient, the fierce, unyielding demand for the GSX-R750 proves that humans still possess a desperate primal craving for friction.
Mhm.
We inherently want to be challenged. We want to be forced into a state of absolute presence where our actions have immediate physical consequences.
I couldn't agree more.
So, what does this all mean for you?
Well, it leaves us with a highly provocative thought to examine in our own routines. The deeply rooted magic of the GSX-R 750 is that it actively permits you to make mistakes. It lets you fail. And because it allows you to fail, it provides the only avenue to truly, genuinely earn your success.
Right.
It begs an important question about the modern world. By continually surrounding ourselves with smart technology designed to keep us perfectly safe, perfectly comfortable, and perfectly optimized, what induction roars of raw, challenging, analog human experience are we accidentally tuning out?
Are we content to just let the drone hover on autopilot while we watch? Or are we still willing to grab the strings, feel the violent tension of the wind, and actually fly the kite ourselves? A massive thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the legendary 750 sweet spot. Stay curious, go find some friction, and we'll catch you next time.